Bill Bennett, I wanted to ask you about the current Republican presidential contenders. Many words have been applied to them, but one of them that hasn't been applied is Reagan-esque. What is it that the current field lacks from the point of view of the GOP's greatest recent presidential incarnation?
Well, one of the things they lack is they haven't been embalmed with time. Time does make distortions and exaggerations. You won't find a bigger Reagan fan than I. Maybe there are, but he was my friend. I was his colleague.
You served him?
I was in his cabinet. We spent time together. I'm in his diaries. I checked that right away when they came out. But he was a great man and a great president. And, greatness is possible for people in our generation as well. But we're looking at him. St. Augustine talks about memory having this kind of rosy hue. And we remember things. Sometimes we exaggerate how bad things were. Sometimes we exaggerate how good things were. He was very good. There's a tendency, I think, among some conservatives to make him almost godlike, which is, of course, wrong. That's idolatry. And to forget some of the problems and some of the issues. Someone reminded me the other day, he said, I may just have to stop reading Human Events because they're being so rough on me.
Yes.
I didn't like anything he was saying.
So is National Review.
That's right. Well, you remember this. That's exactly right. And, there are shortcomings, there are errors. But overall, how do you take a man in a man's life, either politically or in general? You take him in the totality of his actions. And in the totality of his actions, he was a great president. Do we see the Reagan qualities in these men? I can see some. I can see the kind of seriousness of purpose that Newt Gingrich has. He thinks big. Reagan thought big. In fact, I think Reagan really thought about two things, mainly. The essay, The Hedgehog and the Fox. He was the hedgehog. He wanted to do two things: destroy that evil empire and restore America to a great sense of itself.
But not to limit government?
Yes, to a sense of itself, and not to, and part of that meant getting the proper balance between what is the people's business and what is the government's business. I see that kind of large purpose in Gingrich, though he has many more than two.
Yes.
Ideas for everything, including the moon. I see the Reagan disposition in Romney, that kind of sunny demeanor, cheerfulness, which is a very important trait in American politician. People like their candidates, their presidents, to be cheerful and pleasant. Let's go to.
But surely that's overrated, don't you think?
Yeah, sure, it's overrated, but they like it. But you want to get elected, and that's if they like it and you want to get elected, you got to be nice.
It would probably have ruled out every one of the first presidents.
Well, sure, but that is different. You were right about that. That is different, and that's of course. Third guy I'd mentioned, Santorum. That's what they keep telling my friend Rick Santorum, is to be nicer, be more pleasant. But this is a guy with serious convictions. He's rooted. He believes what he believes, and he says so. So we don't know how any of these guys would be as a president. It's possible greatness could come. What does Shakespeare say? Some are born great, some achieve greatness, some have greatness thrust upon. But
could Reagan be elected in this field and in this climate? In a certain sense, Reagan is held against these guys, as you say, a kind of paragon, to whom they cannot possibly approximate. But on the other hand, many people say that Reagan couldn't be elected because he had raised taxes in California. He had compromised on many issues and did compromise on some issues when he was president. And today's atmosphere of purism or purity would have ruled him out. Do you think that's true?
These are the candidates. Right. I would prefer other candidates. I would like to see other people in as well. I was hoping Paul Ryan would get in. I hope someday Marco Rubio gets in. There are other people we can talk about, but we have what we have.
I wonder, one of the things that I miss from Reagan, and I don't see so much of in these candidates, is the ability to expand the range of discussion and look not simply at the economy and joblessness, which is a very important fact of life right now, of course, a very important problem, but also to look at the constitutional dimensions of the questions, and to remind the American people that it's a way of life and a form of government that they're dealing with in this election year, that is at risk in this election year, much more than just material prosperity, as important as that is. you've got liberty, you've got constitutionalism, you've got a whole range of questions which Reagan focused on brilliantly, and which I think, for example, Romney seems not afraid of exactly, but wary of in some way.
The problem, I think, I don't recall Reagan's speeches, addresses, debates, arguments in the primary so well. There were just a few debates, as I remember, right?
Very few.
Recall.
Yeah.
But I remember the theme. I mean, the speech was a speech, and he pretty much gave it everywhere, and it had these dimensions to it. The effect of these debates, I think, has been to narrow the topics a lot. In fact, to get into the weeds about where you were on No Child Left Behind or not, and whether you were with Arlen Specter or not.
Yes.
So there's been a narrowing. That's why I think enough. But I don't want to appear overly sanguine or even Pollyannish, but we'll see. We'll see when we get to the general. And there's a problem when you get to the general election, seems to me, for the Republicans, which is choosing what to talk about. In sports, we talk about flooding the zone, having so many receivers out there. I'm working with my radio audience and saying, what are the 5 issues? And first people say, it's 10. You left out Fast and Furious. You left out foreign policy. There's a ton of things to talk about. But yes, I think a campaign should have reach and inspiration. And I think in our time, one of the encouraging things I think in our time is that people have decided to look back at things like the founding documents, founding principles. Good for the Claremont Institute, which is in this business, but good for the American people too, because we tend to forget these things. And in fact, I can tell you from some experience, we have generations who never learned these things.
Yes. Even Obama reaches back in his own way to the American political tradition. One of the interesting things about him as compared to, say, Bill Clinton, is that he is Reagan-esque. I mean, he seems to have learned a lot from the career of Reagan, even though he was, of course, 180 degrees opposed to Reagan's policies.
He's a good listener, I think, a pretty good mimic. He knows who the big and important people are. I think there was a time when he was trying to be Lincoln, a lanky guy from Illinois, And then Reagan, remember when he praised Reagan and that ticked off Clinton?
During the primaries, yes.
Yes, and then maybe a little FDR as well. So he can't be accused of not having ambition, political ambition.
No.
And in fact, he commented, didn't he say, well, you got to say our achievements are up there with the 2 or 3 of the best administrations?
Yes, that's right.
No shortage of self-esteem there.
Yes, but he sets his standards high.
Yes, he does.
And there's something to be said for that.
Yes, he does.
And it's unclear whether you can say the same of the Republican candidates.
Unclear yet. I'd still say yet. Let's see what happens when they get. I think this is kind of a harness, really. These primaries.
Are you surprised that Republicans haven't emulated Reagan more? I mean, not simply rhetorically, although rhetorically is the beginning of such an emulation, but weaving together the various kinds of conservatives and connecting them all to the American founding, to sort of principles that unite us but also divide us as between liberals and conservatives.
There hasn't been I'd say, rhetorical inspiration in this process. I don't think people are particularly inspired. They like who they like, but I don't think the campaigns have had a lot of lift, what I call lift. And I think Americans like lift. They like lift in a campaign. They also like romance in a campaign. They kind of like to fall for somebody.
And humor.
Who takes them. Yeah, humor's
I mean, there's been a serious shortage of humor on the Republican side, I would say.
Yeah, they've tried, and some of them have fallen flat. But yeah, humor's a good thing. That self-deprecating humor, of course, that Reagan had was almost irreplaceable.
I often wonder why there isn't a Reagan Day, as there's a Jefferson Day, a Jackson Day that the Democrats celebrate. Why don't Republicans have a Reagan Day? Why aren't Republicans meeting in conclave?
I'm all for it, but I'd like to take one away if we have. I mean, I was the Secretary of Education. We got a lot of days off.
Yes.
I'm not sure I want another one. You can have it. And I don't like the President's Day thing, because then you forget.
That's right. Yeah.
What is the actual date? You forget. It's February 12th, February 22nd.
Right.
So, but I'm all for Reagan Day. I'll support it.
Very good. You can be the first speaker at the annual Reagan Day dinner.
I'd be delighted.
Yeah.